Hi, welcome. I'm Ilana King, and I'm an entrance exam specialist. And I train other tutors who'd like to be entrance exam specialists as well. And one of the things that anybody who knows me knows is that I really like to bring some fun and games and use kind of real manipulatives in my sessions, whether it's online or in person, to make learning a little bit more fun. So all of my videos tend to be about how you can zero in on one particular skill and do that. And today, I want to talk about maths, and I want to talk specifically about subitisation, which is being able to recognize the number of objects without actually having to count them. And this is a really big part of maths for entrance exams, whether we're talking about young children at 7+ or whether we're talking about 11+. And one of the great ways that you can help develop this is through some little games that I'm going to show you in a minute. But it's really important that students can do this because they're not just counting. It's not just about counting. It's about looking for and identifying the underlying structure of numbers and the number system. So if they're presented with a large number of something, being able to subitize it into smaller groups to determine how many there are is quite important. So let me show you some great ways that you can do this. And I'm just going to share my other camera with you so that you can see my objects here. Okay, so let's start with something that everybody's got. These are just a collection of different dice, right? And on these dice we've got different numbers, and with very young children, it's as simple as when you take a single dice and roll it, we know that's 4. We didn't actually count the number of spots on there to tell us that that's 4. We just know it. We know it because we're used to dice, so we've kind of memorized these patterns, but also we know it for other reasons. Let's look at this dice, and you can see that we have 2 rows of 2. So we know 2 and 2 is 4. It's a really quick calculation that we can do. If I roll again, or a different dice, and this one is 5, okay, how do we know it's 5? Well, we still have 2 rows of 2, but then an extra one in the middle. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. These types of really simple patterns work well for students who are preparing for 7+. So getting them to think about these very simple multiples and how can group those numbers to actually work out what there is on the dice is a really great way of doing this. And you can also do this with dominoes. So here I've got a set of very small, I can't even remember where these came from, they're so tiny, a set of very small dominoes. And you can put out something like this single domino that has 6 dots on it and talk about it being in 3 rows of 2 or 2 rows of 3. But also we can put out a domino that has got a different number on each side and think about how we can work out the total number altogether. And for instance, in this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of 2 altogether, plus an extra one in the middle. So getting children to think about these patterns in different ways is really, really key. So you can do that very simply with these things you probably have in your house. I mean, who doesn't have a set of dice or a set of dominoes in their house already? I'm thinking most of us probably do. But in addition to that, you can print off some of these other types of patterns. So we can look at these different patterns here, and we can ask lots of different questions to really get our student thinking. So you can ask questions like, are there an even number of dots? Well, how do you know that? And in this case, obviously, there are not. There are an odd number of dots. How do we know that? Well, because there are 3 rows of 3. So anything on the 3 times table is going to be odd. What's the same and what's different about these images? So for instance, we could put 2 separate images down and we can say, what's the same and what's the difference in these images? Notice the difference in the patterns there. We could lay out 4 different images and say, can you see one of these images inside another image? And of course we can, because there are some real similarities between these, and we can talk about those. Okay, are any of these the same? Let's think about that one. It's a really interesting one. Well, I mean, if we look at 3 and 4, they are essentially the same. They're just turned a different way. So the different ways that we talk about it, and of course, how many dots are in each image, and you can really kind of throw things out there and, very quickly put down a card. You could play it almost as a game. I'm going to put down this card. You've got to tell me how you can subitize it, right? So you could have a whole set of these cards and work on that. So there's lots and lots of different ways that you can do it. You can also see patterns in nature as well. So I don't have any to show you, and I'll just change cameras again. But you can find lots and lots of images online that have dots and objects together that occur naturally or man-made, and you can use those to talk about how to subitize. So I think it's a really fascinating topic. I think you could go off on all kinds of tangents and all kinds of games with it, and I think it's a great one to bring into your sessions. It's a little bit more interesting for your students, a little bit more fun for your students as well. Thank you for joining me today, and goodbye.